I made a lot of mistakes when I relocated to Salem, and even though I was only relocating from Portland, the differences between Portland and Salem are stark. My husband and I were not prepared for the realities of selling a house in Portland, buying a house in Salem, and figuring out all the details on the fly. The silver lining to all of this is that today you get to learn from my relocation mistakes, because I'm going to tell you my top 5 things that I wish I knew before relocating to Salem. My name is Clarity Odd, and I'm a local real estate broker here in Salem who specializes in relocations. Just like you, I relocated to Salem, and now I get to make these videos about this amazing city for you, my future clients. If you want to work with us in the home buying process, go down to the description of this video where you're going to find all of our contact information. Reach out so that we can help you. I'm going to give you 5 tips that I wish someone had given me. So if you're in the position that my husband and I were in 5 years ago, I'm hopefully gonna save you a lot of time, money, and stress by sharing my tips that I learned the hard way. The last tip on this list is by far the most important thing I learned along the way, and is probably gonna be the one that saves you the most stress and frustration. Tip number 1 is research moving companies and hire them earlier than you think you're going to need to. We ended up not hiring a moving company, not because Portland and Salem are close together, but we started to research and look into the moving process way too late in the game. We ended up learning that most companies were about 60 to 90 days booked out, which left us with either the option of a pod or a U-Haul truck. I told my husband that I was gonna Tetris the shit out of a U-Haul or pod or equivalent, because I was just that unrealistic and delusioned at that time. There are some benefits to U-Hauls and pods, and the biggest one that I can really think of is that it's just so much cheaper than hiring out a full service moving company. But I think one of the biggest problems is that you actually have to pack up that U-Haul or that pod, which can take so much time and energy. I'm somebody who would much rather hire someone to do the packing and the hauling and the unpacking, and then having them just tell me sign on the dotted line. So no matter how you decide to go about the packing phase in this relocation process, I would strongly encourage you to start having those conversations with different moving companies, and especially if you're going to be hiring out the process to a moving company, talk to them sooner rather than later so that you can get on their books. Tip number 2 is get yourself a DAP bag. You might be wondering, Clarity, what the heck is a DAP bag? And I'll be honest, I have no idea what DAP bag actually stands for, but that's just what my husband calls it, and that is what sticks in my mind. So that's what I'm going to call it. But ladies, I am talking directly to you on this one, not because this should be your responsibility to pack up this little DAP bag. No. I am talking directly to you, babes, because I am saying that you need to go buy yourself a new, very beautiful, very specific catch-all bag. This bag is going to contain random things like screws, tape, scissors, hair ties, screwdrivers, Leatherman, toilet paper, and a few Cliff Bars so that you don't get hangry. This is going to be your go-to bag when you move into your new house and relocate. When you get into your new house on the first night and you go to use the toilet, and you're sitting there on the toilet and you remember all of a sudden that your new house doesn't have toilet paper. Well, what are you gonna do? Well, you're gonna thank me, because don't worry, you've packed toilet paper in your DAP bag. When my husband and I packed up our U-Haul, we didn't have these little tips and tricks ready to go. So on our first night in our new home, I was very hangry, I'll admit it, and my hair tie broke, and I didn't have another one, and I had to go to the bathroom, and I didn't have any toilet paper. So these are all the things that really I wish I had on my first night in my new home with my husband. But now you get to learn from my mistakes, and you can avoid getting hangry. And I'm gonna give you a reason now to go get yourself that beautiful new bag that you've been oogling and ogling over for so long. Tip number 3 on the list is give yourself plenty of time to actually get to Salem. This is a tip that my clients who have relocated have actually imparted on me because, again, when I was relocating, my travel time was only about an hour. But I have a lot of clients who move from all over the country and they'll call me up and say, Clarity, I'm going to meet you at my new house in 3 days. And I'm like, oh my God. You guys, I am so excited to see you in 3 days. And then when they step out of their car, they look all bamboozled like they just got run over by a truck. They've had slightly too much caffeine. They're also really tired, bloodshot eyes, and they look rough. And to my past clients, I say this with love in my heart because now you have given me the tools to impart these tips to you future relocators. So my point is, do not set too strict of a deadline for yourself. No matter how far or how close to Salem you are, give yourself plenty of time to get here. I promise you're gonna thank me later for this one. If you end up driving multiple cars or you're caravanning here with your family or your doggos, make sure that you plan to stop along the way and do a little bit of vacationing. I know that this sounds a little bit silly to talk about going on a vacation when you're relocating and just more stress to the stress pile, right? But let me tell you, my clients who take a night to just relax and recuperate, they all thank me in the end. Now, if you show up to your new house to meet me to get your keys for the first time, and you look like a vampire who hasn't slept in a lifetime, I'm gonna wiggle my finger at you and say, I told you so. But in all seriousness, I say this one with love. If you're liking this video so far, go down and give it a thumbs up and go down to the comments and tell me what is the longest road trip you've ever taken. Tip number 4 on the list is start the packing process way earlier than you anticipate. My husband and we did not take my own advice here. We did not start packing nearly early enough. And I think it really came down to the fact that we didn't have a lot of time or free time between the two of us to start packing. And then on top of that, I was just like really not wanting to pack because it's not really my favorite activity in the world. And so I was procrastinating and, well, we just didn't end up packing until pretty darn late in the game, which then meant we ended up packing stuff so haphazardly that when we went to unpack things, there was no organization to it. It was just so chaotic. It took us so much more time than necessary to actually unpack because we didn't take time to pack properly in the first place. That's not the additional layer of stress that you need when you're unpacking in your brand new home. So start that conversation with the movers early, start that conversation with the U-Haul or pod people early, and start packing early. Now, if I had actually done this entire process over again, I would have booked a full service moving company, which would have had somebody come into the house, pack everything up in a nice organized way, load it into a truck, get to our new house and unpack it. That is how I would have done it all over again. Like I mentioned earlier, I would so much rather pay somebody to save me that stress and time than worry about where the heck I put the kitchen utensils. I don't want to have to deal with that kind of stress. So go slow if you have that luxury. Make yourself a packing checklist and be very methodical about how you approach packing boxes if you're going to do it yourself. I would say I learned that the easiest way to actually pack is do it room by room and not in a squirrely kind of way where you're just booping and bopping all over the house. That doesn't end well. Before we get to the most important tip on this list, I know that this is a lot of information coming at you, and I know exactly how stressful and overwhelmed this process can be. I have zero expectation that you remember anything I said in this video, but when the time is right and you have made that decision to move to Salem, I want you to reach out to schedule your one-to-one buyer consultation with me so that we can talk about how I can help you in this process and journey of relocating to Salem. Tip number 5 is the one that I wish out of all the other tips on the list that I took the time to do. And I wish that I had actually visited Salem and took a weekend just hanging out with my husband in the city and driving around and really figuring out what part of town would be best for my husband and myself. I don't hide the fact that when we moved here, we first landed in Northeast Salem and we didn't like our experience at all. Just like you, I went on to Google and the internet and I hopped on YouTube to try and get a better perspective about the different neighborhoods and what area would really be best for our needs. At the end of the day, we picked the wrong neighborhood, and really that was our fault. So if you have the luxury of time on your side, take the opportunity to come to Salem for the weekend or a week and scope out different neighborhoods. I have a whole entire YouTube channel just dedicated to being your relocation resource. I want you to learn from my mistakes and take my perspective as a fellow relocator. Take all of the information that I put out there and run with it. The best resource that you can use is my YouTube channel, but on top of that, I've also created a Salem neighborhood map guide, which is free for you. It's where I catalog all of my videos that I create on this channel. So if you've heard good things about certain neighborhoods, or you know exactly what school your kiddos are going to go into, that interactive map and guide that I've created is going to be so helpful for you. If you want access to that map or my favorite things to do in Salem, you can find a link to both of those Google guides in the description of this video. The whole reason why I started this YouTube channel was because I found myself working with people who were relocating to Salem. And oftentimes they would ask me the same questions that I was asking when I was relocating. And it occurred to me that I should become the relocation resource that I wish I had when I was relocating to Salem. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to want to watch this one next. Bye, friends.